part of the city where the sun refused to shine. People tell me it ain't no use in trying. My little girl, you're so young and fresh, and one thing I know is true, you're gonna die before your time is due.
So good afternoon, everyone. Today I have Mr. Whitt with us, and it is June 26, 2026. So Mr. Whitt served in SOG, so he's going to tell us a little bit about joining the U.S. military and a brief history of what SOG meant to him and where he went. So over to you, Marcus.
Well, I appreciate that. I appreciate very much being given this opportunity. I'll be honest with you. I wasn't one of those young men that said, gosh, I want to go fight and I'm ready to go and let's go with the best. I was actually a student at Oklahoma State University. I graduated from high school, from a little high school out in the country in Oklahoma, northern Oklahoma in 1966. Went to Oklahoma State University and spent about 3 semesters there. I majored in beer, women, and football. And I didn't do very good at any of them. And so in about the end of spring practice in 1967, my father showed up at my apartment and said, I want you to get your stuff together. We're going home. And of course, they helped pay for college, even though I did have some odd jobs. But anyway, so we went home, and the next morning he got me up and said, get your clothes on and get cleaned up. We're going to Pawhuska. And Pawhuska, Oklahoma was the county seat for Osage County. Osage County is the largest county in Oklahoma. I don't know whether you've ever heard of the movie and or book called The Killer of the Flower Moon.
Yes.
Okay, well, that is Pawhuska and Fairfax in Osage County. I grew up not in that era, but I grew up knowing that and still have connections there in Osage County. So anyway, he took me to the recruiting station in Pawhuska, and of course I didn't know at the time. He volunteered me for the draft. I mean, obviously I was going to get drafted. So whatever paperwork he had to do or whatever he had to say, he volunteered me for the draft. So that meant 2 years and 4 years in reserves. And so I actually got to go home for a month or two, and then I reported for duty, reported to Pawhuska, bus to Oklahoma City, and then from Oklahoma City flew to basic training at Fort Polk, Louisiana. Arrived at Fort Polk. Hell, I didn't know what was going on. It is whatever they said. I knew there was a lot of people cussing you and yelling at you. And then maybe it's because I was a draftee. And back then you had draftees. You had U.S., which is a draftee, and your serial number, not your Social Security number, but the Army number or military number. And if you were if you volunteered, it was RA, regular Army. So you had those 2 designations. The U.S. meant you were in for 2 years, you were drafted. RA meant you said, hey, I want to go. So when you got to basic training, then you were interviewed and they provided you with a list of MOSs that you qualified for. Now, I don't remember whether my list had 3 MOSs or 50 MOSs. I don't remember. I do know that I have not got a mechanical bone in my body. And for some reason, I selected helicopter mechanics. Now, I don't know why I said this to this day. I don't have a clue. They got all excited and said, oh, we need those, but you'll have to resign and then re-enlist, and you will become an RA. You'll have to have 3 years of active duty. So I said, okay. I didn't even question about it. So I did that, went through basic training, and at Fort Polk, Louisiana. I don't know if I said that or not. But anyway, near the end of basic training, it was terrible day. We were standing out in formation in the morning, raining in our ponchos, our weapons, M14s, and getting ready to go to the rifle range for the last, or maybe second to last time. But anyway, they called three of us names out and had us come to the front and said, you won't be going to the rifle range today. You're going to be going to jungle warfare orientation. Now, we had not a clue what that meant. And I don't remember who the other two guys were. But anyway, we showed up in this auditorium, bunch of other service members in that auditorium. And we were chosen because we were the only three men in our company that had RA before our service number. So three of us were volunteers out of that whole company of men at Fort Polk. So we go, we sit in this auditorium, we're dry, and they get us, they yell at ease, and out on the stage walks this tall, starched, jungle fatigued, Green Beret on his head, bright, shiny jump boots. And as I tell people, he is the first enlisted man or officer that didn't start a sentence with UMF. And already I said, this is a nice guy. I don't know what he is, but I like him. So anyway, he does his spiel about SF. He tells us if you want to go through the psychological, the mental test, the physical test, here's where you had to go and all that. So long story short, I'll probably make things too long. I qualified to become a member of Special Forces by going to Fort Bragg. I guess they sent me for AIT to Fort Leonard Wood for combat engineers. And I was told that was so you could focus on explosive. I'm going to tell you a little sidebar on Fort Leonard Wood. My mother's mother told me before I got to go home after basic, and I came back and shipped off to Leonard Wood. And while I was there, my grandmother said, you're going to Fort Leonard Wood. You have a cousin there, probably 17 cousins removed or something. And she gave me his name and said, when you get there, look him up. So I get to Leonard Wood. I don't know who this guy is. I'm not going to look this guy up. I didn't know what he was or anything to do with the military, with the Army. And so one day we just come off the range, and we were cleaning our weapons, and the orderly came to get me and said the CO wants to see you and report to the first sergeant. So I barely knew who the first sergeant was, so I was concerned about having to do this. I didn't know what I'd done. And when I went in the orderly room and I reported the first sergeant, and the first sergeant pointed his finger at me and said, what in the hell did you do? And I had no idea. I didn't know. I said, first sergeant, I don't know what you're talking about. Yeah, you do. What did you do, and how did you do it? Anyway, I didn't know. So he said, I want you to go in and report to the captain. He's got a phone call for you. And when you get through with that, your ass is mine. And I said, oh, and of course I was scared to death. So I went in. Captain basically told me the same kind of thing. And I got on the phone, and this guy's name was James Whitt. And it turns out this was the cousin. And he said, we're glad you're here at Leonard Wood. We want to have you over. I think his wife's name was Martha. Martha and I would like to have you over for dinner, and we'll make arrangements for you to be able to attend. And he said, I'm the post IG. He was lieutenant colonel and was the post IG. And then it dawned on me why the first sergeant and the captain were very upset with me, because they thought I had made a complaint to the IG. Anyway, I was smart enough, probably the only time I was smart enough, to kind of play it up with the lieutenant colonel and my cousin. And lo and behold, I handed the phone back to the captain, and he just he said, "Yes, sir. Oh, yes, sir. We'll take good care of him. No problem, sir." After that, I never had duty of any kind. We had a PX that had like 6 inches of snow, and they said, "You won't be going out on the PX. You'll be driving the chow truck back and forth. You'll be staying at the billets." It was AIT. I learned a lot, but it was a wonderful experience just because of that one incident. So anyway, I go through Leonard Wood, get my 12 Bravo, and then I go to jump school at Fort Benning, finish jump school, and then I report to Fort Bragg for the 3-week assessment course back then. Phase 1 is what we called it then. It was a phase 1, phase 2. Phase 1 was assessment. Phase 2 was your MOS, and phase 3 was your final up at McCall, run through Pisgah National Forest.
So just a question for you. At this point in time, do you have the candy stripe on your beret?
We got, if I remember right, we didn't get a candy stripe till later.
Okay.
I remember I've got a picture of me. I think I sent it to you, standing by my mom's and dad's car where I just had the crest on the beret.
Okay.
So, and I know that was certainly after we went through the assessment, of course. We didn't wear a beret during the assessment. Assessment for me was very difficult. I do remember that when we did our last exfil, excuse me, we went out. We were in teams, and we had a first lieutenant, I believe, with us, and the rest of us were enlisted, and we were dropped off at night, and our objective was to travel from point A to point B, navigate, and do whatever exercise they had to do. And when we got off the truck that dropped us there, and the truck leaves, the lieutenant lit up a cigarette, and it's pitch black, and out of the woods comes Sergeant First Class Torres, screaming his head off with this lieutenant. Of course, light discipline went out the door with the lighting of the cigarette. And he told all of us that were there, and I think there were 6 of us, but I'm not for sure, that he was going to make sure we all flunked assessment and had to go back through it. And I'm going, oh my God, I don't know that I can do this again. I mean, I lost tremendous amount of weight. I wasn't heavy anyway and lost a lot of weight. So anyway, this guy could go through a wall and you'd never hear him. He was the most stealthy man I'd ever seen in my life. And of course, he was in SOG recon. But so anyway, get through assessment. I actually was going to 91 Alpha, which was medics. I was going to be a medic. And I don't remember how that was determined. But went through 91 Alpha, that Bragg, and then you went to Fort Sam for 91 Bravo, and then you came back to Fort Bragg for what they call Dog Lab. They don't have Dog Lab anymore. Your dog was shot or something was done to it, and then you had to make sure it didn't die. But anyway, so go through 91 Alpha. They tell our class that there's been a delay with people going to Fort Sam. There's too many people there. And that we had a choice. We could either pick up pine cones for 90 days or we could switch MOSs. So I didn't like the idea of picking up pine cones. Oh. So I switched to 05B, Special Forces radio operator. I'm not really sure why. I don't really know why I made some of the choices I did in my life up to that point. I just did. I can't look back and say, oh, I've always wanted to go, did it all, but that wasn't the reason. Anyway, went through radio operator school, did real well. I got really good at that, and so finished that up, and then we go through phase 3 and did our operation phase 3, Pisgah National Forest, and all that garbage. And the last day of our tenure, we were in what they called the new billets back then. They were 3 or 4 story brick billets, not the old wooden billets. I think there was a 6-man room. And so the morning we were going to graduate, we cleaned our room up, buffed, all that kind of stuff, get ready for inspection, and we go out. One of our guys was not there with us, and we didn't know where he was, but we went out, fell into formation, and several of us were promoted from E3 to E4, including moi. Well, they go down the line and promote these folks, and we all, hey, yeah, we're going to graduate, yada. And then our room, because apparently our missing guy flunked phase 3, he had to come back to the billets, get his stuff out of his locker, put fresh stuff in, and go back to the field. Well, in doing that, he destroyed our room. There was MRE stuff, dirt, everything all over it, because he just ran in, pulled stuff out, put stuff in, and went back out again. Well, they came and they came back down the line for us in that room that got promoted to Spec 4 and demoted us back to PFC. So I was promoted and demoted in the same formation, along with Mike Blackwell. Mike Blackwell's a CCN guy. Mike and I are real good buddies. So anyway, we finish, and Mike and I were checking out together because we got assigned to first group. So we're heading to Okinawa.
So just at this point in time, sorry to interject.
No, please.
Had the ripple effect of hearing about SOG, had that reached you?
It hadn't really me. I mean, and I don't know that it did anybody else. They talked about in classes that there was SF teams in every country in the world. There were secret projects going on all over, and stuff that you'll never hear about or stuff you might hear about. But I don't remember ever hearing the word SOG until I got to first group.
Okay.
So that was, and maybe they did, and I was asleep that day. I don't know. So I don't remember it at all. So Mike and I, along with Tom Michaels, 3 of us are heading there. We're all radio operators. We're in the same class. We're all heading to Okinawa. And it's kind of another sidebar. So Mike and I don't know why Tom wasn't with us, but we report to Oakland to head to Okinawa, and we hit there the same day. And so I think we had to wait around a day or two. And so we went to the PX and do whatever you do in the PXs. But Mike bought a Zodiac, Bulova, I think it was Bulova watch. Beautiful thing. $125 in 1960. This would have been in 60 into 68. I mean, yeah.
That's big money.
Yeah, it was a lot of money then. It wasn't a Rolex. Of course, you always heard about the Rolex and sapphire rings. But so Mike buys this watch, and it has moon phases in it, amongst other things. And he spends 2 days trying to figure out how to make that work. And he gets so frustrated, he said, finally, I'm not fucking with this watch anymore. Hey, Whitt, you want to buy it for $25? I said, yeah. I bought it for $25. I saved it and sent it to my father. And my father wore that thing for like 30 years before it just kind of poofed out. So that was really neat. So Mike, I, and Tom Michaels report to B Company 1st Special Forces Group. If you think about jump school, one of the first things you did in jump school is you got rid of the bus driver cap, like the one you've got in the back behind you there.
Okay, yeah,
that's what they were called back then. Bus driver hats, threw them away, got rid of them. And then we wore the C cap.
Okay.
Okay. So we get to Oki, and Oki's got a lot of deployments going on. They've got Operation Snakebite. They're running recon teams into Vietnam, and they're doing things in Thailand. They're doing things in Formosa, and I got to go on a couple of those things in Thailand and Formosa. But so we get there. So what is the first thing that Mike, Tom, and I get assigned to? We get assigned to go to bus driver school. because of hurricane season. They wanted to be able to have somebody be able to drive the bus to pick up the troops and take them wherever they took them. Of course, we never did do anything, but bus driver school. So that was so exciting. We three actually got assigned to the Halo team. We made a couple of Halo jumps, but the whole team wasn't there. So basically, what we did was pack chutes basically the whole time we were there. We had several guys that went snakebite. I don't remember how they determined who went. I don't remember anybody coming to me and say, "Whit, you want to volunteer for snakebite?" I wouldn't have meant it, but they didn't ask us. We did a lot of radio operator training up in the middle of all of the mountains or hills of Okinawa. So we did that, and I really got tired of all the kind of admin BS. We really weren't doing anything. Now I did get to go to Formosa, and I did get to go to Thailand for like a week each time, and I actually got my Thai wings, my Formosa Chinese wings. And of course, Vietnamese wings. But anyway, so I decided I was going to request a PCS to Nam. And it came through, see, I have to say, because I got to go home 30 days. I'll say that the 1st of October, I'm going to guess, of 1969. So I was at Oki for about 9 months.
Wow.
And then got PCS orders to an A team in Vietnam. And so I went home, did my 30 days, and then reported back and flew to Nam. The plane I flew on from out of Oakland, there was one other Green Beret. It was an E6, and I don't remember what his name was, but he had been in SOG up at CCN, and he said, "Whatever you do, don't go to SOG." And he told me about some of the things that they did, and I thought, well, that sounds pretty bad. So both of us get off the aircraft. And who's waiting for us on the tarmac? Sergeant Major Billy Waugh.
Oh, man.
And Sergeant Major, of course, I didn't know who he was. I mean, he's Sergeant Major,
Yeah.
And he walked up to both of us and he said, "Where are you two going?" And we said, "Well, we got a report over here to sign in to whatever." He said, "No." He said, "I'm going to give you an offer that you probably can't refuse." He said, "You have two choices." Oh, wait. First he took orders to see where we're being signed. And both of us were going to an A side somewhere. And he ripped them up in front of us.
Wow.
And he said, "You have two choices. You can either volunteer for SOG, or you can go to a leg unit. Which choice do you want to make?"
Wow.
Well, even the E6 that had already done SOG said, I'll do SOG. And I wasn't about to go to a leg unit. So anyway, I volunteered too. So that's how I ended up at SOG. It wasn't my patriotic, I raised my hand and did it. It just, that's the way it happened. And I ended up, they did not ask me, do you want to go to CCN, CCS, CCC? When we got up to the train, it was just, we're going to assign you to CCS because they need radio operators.
Right.
And so that's how I ended up at SOG.
Now, during this time, as you're heading down to a CCS, had you heard about Shriver at all?
No, I had never heard anything about Mad Dog or Jerry Shriver until I got to CCS. And then, of course, about the first thing you see when you get there was his dog Claus, and he had a monkey, and I can't remember his name. And
Susie, Susie the monkey.
Susie.
Yeah.
Well, Susie liked me. Susie hung around me way too much while I was there. But anyway, I didn't know anything about Jerry until we got there at all. And then, of course, when you got there, you certainly heard the legend and the kind of guy he was and what he did and so on and so forth. So I got to CCS. In fact, we were landing on the C-130, and I remember looking out the window, and there was a bunch of tents. CCS was a bunch of red dirt.
Right.
And so we started landing. There was all these tents, bunch of them, GP mediums, I guess. And I thought, oh shit, am I going to be here? I'm going to live in that for a year. Well, it turns out I think it was a 1st Division had a battalion outside of Amituit, and so of course we ended up in plywood billets. But which was pretty good, pretty good. So anyway, hit CCS and was escorted to, and I do not remember when I got there the sergeant major's name. I'm terrible on names. Sometimes I'm not sure I know what my name is. But anyway, I remember specifically that he gave us do's and don'ts. And one of the big don'ts was you will not take any photographs in this camp or anywhere else that you set foot for SOG. And there was lots of other things. And talked about the secrecy. And I don't think it still didn't hit me. I mean, it still didn't hit me what kind of unit this really was till years later, not when I got through, years later. So I got assigned to the TOC as a radio operator. Like I said, I was a really good, did an otter. Used a bug when I first got there. I don't, vibroflex bug. You ever seen one?
No. Oh.
Hold that thought. I happen to have one on the shelf. This I had purchased. I don't want to see.
Okay.
In Okinawa, and start using it. It's got a spring on it, and you're able to do dits and dolls really quick.
Okay.
I remember the first time I used it, I was sending a message to Quan Loy and the radio operator down there. I don't know who it was, but came back on and said, "Are you using your foot to send that shit with, or what?" So I wasn't as hot as I thought I was. But anyway, I spent probably a lot of time in the TOC, and then got assigned. Well, not assigned. My first "let's go out in the boonies" assignment was the radio relay site, which we usually sent 2 Americans along with a squad or 2 of either Cambodians or Yards up with us, and we relayed radio signals, obviously, between Cambodia and the teams and the base camp. So it got a little dicey there every once in a while, but
so when during, I don't want to jump too far forward.
No, you're fine.
But I thought it was so funny that on your interview with Tilt, is that your mother was very concerned. Can we tell that little side?
Yes, that was so embarrassing. The first mission into Cambodia that I was on, they took 2 radio operators, me, myself, and Ben Brown, with First Company, and that was a yard company. And we were assigned to First Company to go. So the way it worked, we went into boot op, and then the company jumped off out of there, and we did what's called stay behind. And stay behind was they take one of the companies, the Cambos or the Yards. First company was Yards, and second company was Cambodians, and we would walk inside the Cambodian border, and we go into an RON. We're in a company size element, you're going to make noise, and that's what we wanted to do to try to draw the enemy and engage them. But the next morning we would move out making lots of noise, and one of the embedded recon teams would stay behind.
Okay.
And they would wait a certain amount of time till they knew we were on down the trail, and then they would move off towards their mission to do what they did to do. And I think the first one we had 3 teams embedded, and all 3 did that kind of thing. That was my first ever firefight. We did the RON. Next morning we get up, we move a little bit, and they said we hit the Ho Chi Minh Trail, and they sent a little, 3 or 4 guys up the trail a bit, and they became engaged, and we got involved with they said probably a couple of company-sized elements of MVA, and quite a firefight. First for me, and of course my job was radio operator. I carried the Prick 74, which had CW and voice capability. So I send reports CW, but when the shit hits the fan, you get on the voice. And so I was calling in helicopter ships in to help. And as they made their figure eight, of course, with their miniguns, the hot casings were just, they just flow out. Well, they flow over the top of you, and those things coming. Well, one of them went down the back of my shirt, and I thought I'd been shot. I didn't know, I thought, oh my God, I've been shot. Well, it turned out I wasn't. But anyway, we had a couple of casualties in that deal. It lasted probably 20 minutes, and
which is a long time.
It is a long time. We were a larger element, of course. So, but it was. I won't kid you, I was scared. I mean, that was my first time, and I was scared. Now, tell you about another time when I was really scared. But anyway, that was our first firefight, and Ben and I traded. I went back to boot op. I think we did a week at a time, but we did 4 weeks out there. So I went back to boot op for a week, and Ben came out, and he spent a week. And so while we were at boot op, we were doing monitoring the radio for any of the teams or the company that may need help or whatever. And I remember helping the medics. One of the teams that we one of the teams that we helped insert got hit pretty bad, and one of the guys took a round in the head, and he didn't make it. And that was my first experience of holding gauze on a guy's head as he didn't make it. So that was a little traumatic, but anyway, so we do this thing for 4 weeks. We come back, and they told us you got 7 days to do whatever you want to because of the length of time. So as we were trying to get cleaned up, clean our equipment up, clean our weapons, somebody from the TOC comes over and said, "Hey, the CO wants to see you." And I think his name was Whitt, if I remember right, Lieutenant Colonel Whitt, not the same Whitt that was at Fort Leonard Wood. And so I couldn't imagine why he would want to see me, so I report to him. And he says, "I need to know why you have not written your mother."
And you're going, what?
And it's exactly what I said. I said, "Excuse me, sir?" He said, "Yes, I have been contacted by your mother through the Red Cross, and she was worried about you, and she wanted to know why she had not received any letters from you." And I said, "Sir, the last I checked, there were no post offices in Cambodia. But what do I know?" Anyway, he said, "Oh, you just got off that net." I said, "Yeah, that was me." And he said, "Get the hell out of here." So that was that was something I could never live down. But good old mom was making sure that her son was still okay. And I'll tell you at the end how that worked out. But anyway, so I did about 4 total missions with First Company as a radio operator. Did a radio operator stint in Pleiku when the Big Red One went into Cambodia, and they were pulling all that cash out, the weapons and the ammunition and the explosive and all the stuff out of Cambodia when they went into. And I was maintaining contact with some of the teams that were in that area that had gathered the intel of where all that stuff was. So anyway,
when you're on the radio, are you hearing other teams' commos that when they're in the field?
Sometimes, not all the time.
So that
I went up with a fax several times as a radio operator and flew the border and did that kind of thing. I remember the first time I went up with one, they had rockets on them, and they would fire rockets to either pinpoint something or, hey, there's a group of bad guys, I'm going to shoot them. And you do. And I always felt like when they shot that rocket, the plane went backwards. I don't know what it actually did, but that's certainly all it felt like. But and I got to fly one of the sticks in the back. Every once in a while, the pilot would let me do that. So that was kind of neat. And we took some rounds up through the fuselage several times. So
scary.
Well, it is kind of scary because, it's hard to reach down and shoot anything back. But I think I've told people this many times. I think one of we were getting ready to do another mission into Cambodia, First Company, and I think there were 2 I believe there were 2 squads of yards, myself, Larry Lanham, and I think Sergeant Yates or Williams. He was the first sergeant of the first company. Were on the aircraft, and it was a Blackbird, the kind that's got the curtain in it, and you can't go past that curtain and that kind of stuff. Because they're Chinese pilots, Formosa. So we get on the aircraft at Bammy Tuit. They fly to boot up and getting ready to land on the field, and we got hit with a 151, or not a 151, a 51 caliber machine gun from the front of the plane to the back of the plane. And the pilots yanked the yoke, and well, I guess they yanked the yoke. They went up, and they lost some hydraulic systems to the wheels, and I don't know whether it was the front or the back or which ones it was. So we headed to, and I can't remember who had the longest runway, Tom Sanood or Cameron Bay. We went to the longest runway that there was. And long story, all the way across country, the pilot is flying the aircraft up, and he's cutting the engines, trying to drop the wheels down, or wheel. I don't know whether it's wheels or wheel.
Right.
But one of them, and I thought, shit, we're all going to die. And then we go in on a belly landing.
That's, I'm sure, scary.
Oh, that would just, that's the scariest moment for me in Vietnam, was that. Because you have no control of it. It's not like you can shoot back at bad guys. Fortunately, it all worked out. Nobody got hurt. I had a piece of shrapnel in me from the 51 cal. The crew chief got a round in his leg.
Wow.
And I think that was it. By the way, I didn't get a Purple Heart for that, but that's neither here nor there. So we land, and this is another kind of amusing thing. So we land, and first sergeant says, "All right, put a perimeter around the aircraft." And so we get all the yards and set up their perimeter along with me and Larry. Sad thing is, I talked to Larry not too long ago, and he does not remember that at all, not at all. And so anyway, so we set up a perimeter, and out comes a Jeep with a little 3-star flag flying from it, and it's the general of the Air Force Base there. Maybe it was Tonson. Anyway, he comes up and he gets out of his shiny little Jeep, and Sergeant Yates or Williams reports to him as normal. And the general says, is everybody okay? Oh, yeah, we're okay. He said, I want to inspect the aircraft. And Sergeant Williams says, "Sir, you're not allowed on that aircraft." And the general, I'm paraphrasing here, the general says, "Excuse me, this is my airbase. I can do anything I want to." "No, sir, you can't get on that aircraft." And the general says, "I'm going to get on that aircraft, Sarge, whether you say I can or not." And Sergeant Williams turned to us and said, "Lock and load." So we jack rounds in the chamber, and he said, "Go ahead, sir, see if you can go past that."
Wow.
Well, he didn't try. He got in his Jeep, and of course, nothing ever materialized because he wasn't going to get over that one. That's kind of like when the Big Red One went into Cambodia. I had the assignment up at Pleiku, and so I was in a Jeep. I don't remember what I was doing or why I was going somewhere. I was going somewhere to get something or pick someone up. I sped, and the MP stopped me. And of course, we had that little get out of jail card free. And so they query me, "What's your name, rank, serial number?" And I said, "I'm not allowed to provide that information to you." And of course, that really set him off. And I said, "Well, here's a card. You want to check that out?" So "We don't need a fucking card." And I said, "Okay, I'm still not going to give you any information." And so they put me in handcuffs, left the Jeep at the side of the road, and they took me to the MP station. And they had a captain there, and captain being captains decided he was going to teach this young buck sergeant a lesson. And he interrogated me and wanted me to give name, rank, serial number, what unit of why I was here, and all that kind of stuff. And said, "Sir, I can't provide any of that information." I said, "You're I think he was a buck sergeant too." I said, "Your buck sergeant's got a card that you might want to call." And so he took the card, and he said, "I'll get back to you." And so he went to his phone, dialed this number, and somebody on the other end obviously answered, because all I could hear was, "Yes, sir. Oh, yes, sir. Not a problem, sir. I'll take care of it, sir." And he hung up, And he turned around and he said, "You guys take him back to the Jeep and you don't ever stop him again." That was
Wow.
it. Got my card back too. So that was that was kind of amusing time.
So did you see Wah again during your time down there?
Yes, I saw Billy several times. He was at CCS for a little while,
Mm.
but I don't think he was the camp sergeant major because I think he was totally involved in recon company. And then ran into him up at the train. And then I never did see him again, other than reading stories about him. But my first encounter with him was enough. I wasn't looking for any more. I didn't need any more orders. So,
And so did you, when you went on R&R, did you go to Thailand, or did you go
I
to
didn't go
Australia?
on R&R.
Okay.
When I got that 7 days,
Right.
oh, that's another story. When Ben Brown and I got the 7 days, we went in the train. And we were just going to goof off, go to the beach. When I was on Oki B Company, we had a company formation. And the night before, I don't know how or why or what happened, but I wore glasses back then. I wore glasses until till I was 65. I mean, glasses to see long with. I wear
Right.
reading glasses, but, I broke my regular glasses. And the only pair of glasses I had was a pair of sunglasses. Well, I fell out in formation with those sunglasses on. And the platoon sergeant, again, I'm terrible on names. I don't remember his name, but I remember he was pissed. And he raked me up one side and down the other in front of, all the other men. And don't you ever get in my formation with sunglasses ever again. And I had to drop and do push-ups and all that stuff. So anyway, Ben and I, we go to train for in-country R&R. And, they had a Tasty Freeze, Dairy Queen, or whatever you want to call it, and other things to do and see. And so that's what we did. And we were going down I don't know what they called it. It was kind of like a marketplace.
Right.
And the SF had a BASAF, which was tapes, 1800 reel-to-reel tapes store, so to speak. And they would record music on those tapes for, I don't know, whatever the price of the tape. Buy tape, they would record whatever songs you wanted to from their catalog.
Wow.
And so Ben and I went in, and lo and behold, the sergeant that had eaten me out for wearing my sunglasses was running that little store. And I said, "Hey, Sarge, hey, do you remember me?" He said, "Are you the guy that showed up in my formation in sunglasses?" And I said, "Yep, I'm that guy." He said, "Where are you?" I said, "I'm in SOG." He said, "Man," he said, I that's just one of them things that happens." And anyway, Ben and I spent about all of our time recording music, and he didn't charge us anything. We got the tapes and got the charge of music. I ended up with I don't know, 20 1,800-foot reel-to-reel tapes. And of course, everybody had a reel-to-reel in their hooch.
Yeah.
Of music, 60s and certainly 1970 kind of music. And so that was interesting. I ended up with that stuff back in the States, and I gave it all away at some point in time in my life. So
Now, did you ever get one of the rings, the sapphire rings, or the Pepsi
No.
Cola
And
Rolex?
I did not spend money because I wanted to buy a new car when I got home. And so every penny, other than what I used
Yeah.
locally, every penny, I spent my mom like $500 a month to put in the bank. And I probably made 600, something like that. So I kept very little cash because when I got home, I had like $6,000 in the bank.
Wow.
And I wanted to buy a 442 Oldsmobile,
Yeah.
manual transmission. And I hit the States. When that happened, GM went on strike, and you couldn't find a 442 anywhere. I ended up buying a rental Cutlass Supreme. You couldn't find a new one on the lot. So I ended up buying a pre-owned, as they call them now, Cutlass red with white interior Cutlass Supreme. It was a good looking car, but it wasn't a 442.
Wow.
But I paid cash for it, so which was exciting. My mother was shocked that I had, she'd heard so many stories about GIs coming home not having a penny to their name, and I had sent all that money home.
So
anyway,
how long did you spend with SOG then?
a year.
A
I was
year.
with them a year. I might have stayed longer. I went through a board. God, I wouldn't have thought they'd have a board in Vietnam. Promotion board for E6 down at B52 or 53. It was maybe to its B team. I don't remember what the number was, 52 or 53, and did real well and was on the top number one on the list. But they froze promotions,
Right.
and that was near the end of 70. And I was so pissed off. And when I got ready to leave, they weren't encouraging us to stay because
Okay.
SOG was shutting down.
Yeah.
All the teams had left Bammy Tuit and gone up to, I think all of them went to CCNs where they went. So we were just kind of at the very end, just kind of I'm not even sure what we did, to be honest with you. But we still there was still somebody running recon because we certainly kept doing reports for them and talking to them at certain points of time. But I don't remember when that stopped. But they when I left, they asked me they said if you'll re-enlist, we'll make you an E6. And I said, where would I go if I re-enlisted? Well, we might send you up to CCN SOG. And I said, why? Anyway, I was not a very happy camper at the end. So I didn't re-enlist. I got out of the Army, PCS'd out of the Army, got that lovely put on your civilian clothes at Fort Lewis, Washington. Let's go to San Francisco and get spit on and yelled at, and got home. And I mentioned earlier about my mom and dad, who very wonderful parents, very wonderful parents. But when I got home, and again, this is one of those things that I didn't realize 2 years later, it was like when my mom picked me up at the Tulsa airport, and I don't even remember asking anything about Vietnam on the way home. But it was never mentioned again. They never asked me about how was it like, what did you do? And I wrote letters, but of course I couldn't say what I was doing in the letters,
Yeah.
And then of course when we left, you had to sign this 20-year thing that said you couldn't talk about it, but you really couldn't admit you were in Vietnam in those days because I went back to college, and nobody wanted anything to do with you if you were a veteran. You were chastised and all kinds of bullshit. So I just kept my head down, went to school. I ended up got my associate degree in a little town in Oklahoma, then went down southeastern Oklahoma, got my bachelor's degree. But while there, I'm walking across campus, and here comes a Green Beret walking across the campus in his jungle fatigues. And I went up to him and said, "What are you doing here?" And I explained, what I was, where I'd come from. He said, "Oh gosh." He said, "Do you know there's a reserve unit in Tulsa?" I said, "No." And so I ended up joining the 12th Special Forces Group, 2nd Battalion, out of Tulsa, Oklahoma. Spent about 10 years on an A team there. I'm kind of leaving Vietnam. Is there anything, I don't have any of the NVA surrounded us and they were going to kill us all. I don't have any of those stories.
But when you were stateside and you were going to college and you had some quiet moments to yourself, apart from the experience of having a man die in front of you, were there other points that you couldn't avoid that kept coming up? Like, where I'm going with this is, did you think that back then they didn't know about any kind of PTSD?
Yeah, PTSD was not an issue.
So were there things that sometimes that you would wake up or
Oh yeah, I had a lot of nightmares, a lot. And I still have a few, not very many, but I still have them. In the beginning, it was very hard on me. And until I was in a reserve unit in, I think it was 1988. It might have been 89. We went to Fort Pickett on an exercise, and they took us to the Vietnam Memorial there in Washington, D.C. on the weekend, middle weekend. And I'll be honest with you, I broke down. I cried there. I cried. Excuse me. And I cried at the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier. It just, it just got a hold of me. And that was the first time that I'd ever really been able to say,
Release.
you know, this was really bad shit, but you made it through.
Yeah.
So, and there are lots of times that even today that will trigger that.
Yeah.
I can't get away from that. It's, the trip I took to Vietnam. You want to talk about that?
Yeah. So that's why I was getting to that.
Okay.
So just to back up, this isn't really about your story. It's from my interactions with all your peer group.
Okay.
And they said that really, if you stayed into the military after your time in SOG, that it was much easier to kind of keep yourself focused in that mindset being in the military, whereas others that got out of SOG into civvy life found it so much harder to deal with their experiences. So why I was asking you about that was, and I'm not asking for any details, that's not where I was going with it, but you experienced memories and experiences which still stick to you to this day. And so to fast forward to in recent history, that you had the ability to go back to Vietnam. So before you tell the viewers about your trip and what that meant to you, had you thought about going back to Vietnam for closure, or whatever that you want to call it? Closure is a very wide word. I don't really like that word, but just to get that monkey off your back.
Yes, and oddly enough, excuse me, last year I had met Bruce Christensen. Of course, I'd met him before.
Yep.
At SOAR many times.
Yep.
And he had taken our one of the writers, Larry Trimble,
Yep.
back to Vietnam. And I talked to him last year. Is that right? Well, either last year or year before. Anyway.
Yeah.
And he was telling me about, it was after Larry went, he and Larry went. And he said, would you like to go? And I said, I think I kind of would. I think I'd like to go back.
And why? Why would you want to go back?
To see what that country looked like today, what influence, if any, did we or the U.S. military have on the Vietnamese people? Maybe if I got to step on the ground that I had been before, that some of the demons that I deal with, and I'm not, don't misunderstand me, I'm not demon crazy, but there's still those things that bother me.
Yep.
And so I thought, well, maybe that would relieve that. And so I had planned on going with Bruce. And when it ended up he was going, something else in my life said, oh, you got to do this, you can't do that. So I was shocked when I got a call from Tilt saying, would you be interested in going back to Vietnam? And I said, yeah. I said, I was going to go with Bruce. And he said, he said, there's a guy from the Best Defense Foundation that's going to give you a call. His name is Donnie Edwards. And they're putting together a trip. At least talk to him. Okay. And I said, oh shit. Yeah, no problem, Bill. So that's how it began. Over the years, I've always thought about what it would be like to go back. And would it make a difference? Hell, you don't know until you go. So I just know that that I don't think anything will ever truly alleviate everything. You saw too much terrible crap that's not going to erase out of your mind.
Yeah.
Fortunately, I'm not as affected by it as a lot of people. And I think your point about staying in the military, I think that's very true. Because being in special forces and staying in there for the first 10 years on my reserves, I actually I finally got promoted to E7, and I was the senior radio operator on A211, and I really wanted to make 8, but all of the team sergeants in our battalion, they were young guys. I mean, they weren't, or they were my age or younger, and they weren't going to be leaving anytime soon. And I left Special Forces, the reserves, and went to a U.S. Army garrison because a friend of mine was the legal lieutenant. He was a legal officer there, and he lived in the same town that I did. And he said, "Hey, you ought to come join. You'll eventually make 8." So I go to the 4003rd U.S. Army Garrison, and that's a unit that if we went to war, I don't think they exist anymore, but if we went to war, that unit would go to a post and they'd take over the post functions in that regards. And I was the data senior NCO. And when we used to deal with the computer cards and all that stuff.
Right.
And so then my friend got promoted, or not got promoted, he got assigned as a battalion commander up in Ponca City, Oklahoma. And he called me and said, "Hey, I've got got an EAD op sergeant opening. Do you want it?" And so in fact, I was living in Ponca City at the time. So I went to Ponca City because that's perfect. It was just basically down the street almost. And so I went there. And then in 1988, yeah, I think it was 88, I got promoted to sergeant major and was sent to the 4155th USAR school in Oklahoma City as the director of enlisted courses, and was there 2-3 years. In fact, a company of the 2nd Battalion 12th Special Forces Group was in that same building. And one of the guys came up to me and said, "Are you going to apply for the CSM for 2nd Battalion?" And I said, "I don't know anything about that." And I said, "I just made Sergeant Major like a year ago. You know, they're not going to give a CSM job to a Sergeant Major a year ago." So anyway, he said, "Well, I'm going to bring you the announcement." So he brings me the announcement. I thought, well, it wouldn't hurt to apply. I get some experience at doing a packet and that kind of thing. And then next time I might get lucky. So lo and behold, I get selected as the command sergeant major for 2nd Battalion 12th Special Forces Group.
Oh.
So I show up in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and report to the battalion commander, David Rapp. And when I walked in the door, reported to him, he said, "What in the hell are you doing here?" And I said, "I'm the new CSM for you, sir." And he said, "No, you're not. My CSM is Wilson Hunt. Do you know that name
No.
at all?" Okay, Wilson was at CCC, and Wilson, he was a CSM at 2nd Battalion for years, way longer than he should have been. So anyway, excuse me, that was my, oh man, excuse me. That was my starting as a CSM, and fortunately, we worked it out. David Rapp was never a fan of mine. The next battalion commander that came on was good. Another funny story about that is David and I were traveling. 2nd Battalion, 12th Group, had 3 companies. They had A company in Oklahoma City, Oklahoma, B company in I started to say, gosh dang it, Texas, El Paso, Texas, and C company in San Diego, California. Nice. And we had A teams strung out all between Oklahoma and California. What was really odd about that, 3rd Battalion, 12th Special Forces Group was in Northern California. Never made any sense to me. But I did a lot of traveling as a CSM. So anyway, we were going somewhere, one of the companies, And we had, I remember we were waiting for our baggage on the carousel, and he said, "Oh, there's my bag," and I grabbed it for him. I said, "I'll get it, sir," and I picked it up, and I tore my arm off, and I set it down the floor. And I said, "What the hell you got in there, sir? Weights?" And he looked at me, and David did have big arms. He said, "Yeah." He had put weights in his bags. He worked out with weights. He was anyway. But anyway, lo and behold, I stayed there. The 11th and 12th groups deactivated in '94. So I was the last command sergeant major for 2nd Battalion, 12th Special Forces Group.
Wow.
And then I went on to, let's see, I left there. Left there, a lot of our guys went to the 19th and 20th Special Forces Groups, the National Guard. In '94, I don't know if you know this or not, but the Pentagon, in all its wisdom, took the combat role away from the Army Reserves and gave it to the National Guard. And the Army picked up combat support and combat service support kinds of activities. I've always believed the only reason the National Guard got it is because they had, every state National Guard unit has at least 3, if not 4 or 5 generals. So they had, 50 states and territories. They had 200-300 generals. So they're going to overpower the Army Reserves 5, maybe. So that's how they ended up with that combat role. And the 19th and 20th were well, they were good. They were very operational in Afghanistan and Iraq, and probably still are today. So, but a lot of our younger guys were able to transfer to the 19th or 20th, and they wouldn't take a E9. So I ended up going to another unit. Yes, sir.
So just to take a little step back,
Okay.
Can we just expand a little bit on did you find some peace going back to Vietnam, and where did you go, because you went with fellow SOG members?
Yes. Okay. Well, of course, Donnie Edwards called me, tells me about the deal. They have a packet of stuff you got to fill out. They did ask it, give us 2 or 3 places you'd like to visit. So I put Bammy Tuot, Boot Up. I knew it wasn't there anymore, but at least where it was, and Nha Trang, because those are 3 areas that I actually set my feet in. And I wanted to go, if I went to Bammy Tuot or outside Bammy Tuot, you could have been able to see the radio relay site like 5 kilometers away or whatever. So that's what I put in my packet. I don't know what the others put. There turned out there were 6 of us from CCN, and 1 from CCC and 1 from CCS. And it turned out that the places we visited, of course, I flew from Knoxville into Atlanta, and Atlanta to San Diego, and then we all met in San Diego, except for one of us, and then we hooked up in LA, and that's where we took Korean Airlines over to, good gravy, Seoul, and then into to Tan Son Nhut Air Force Base. Great. The flights were wonderful. We were in business class, and you just can't imagine all the service that we got. Donnie and Catherine Edwards are the founders of this foundation. Donnie is he is a retired NFL linebacker, played for UCLA, and he played for the Chargers and for the Chiefs 14 years. And his, these NFL guys that have been around a long time, making the big bucks, they all have foundations of some sort. Well, he wanted to, and I think it had to do with his father or grandfather. He decided he wanted to take World War II veterans back to Normandy or Bastogne or any other pertinent place that they might want to go to. And so that's what they do. In fact, they just got back from taking 30 or 40, I can't remember the exact number, World War II veterans back to Normandy. One of them was 150 7 years old and still drove a car.
What?
Yes, still drove a car. Now I don't know where he drove it, but he still drove a car. But they took care of us. There were 8 of us. There were 10 support people. They had a doctor and a nurse.
Wow.
They had all kinds of aides to be able to, and we didn't need all that. I mean, it turned out, but they were there. We paid for nothing. They took care of the airline. They took care of snacks, bar tabs. They took care of everything. The only thing you had to pay for is if you wanted a souvenir. So I bought 3 caps from a street vendor that said Saigon or something on it, and I gave them away, but for $5. So I spent $5 of my money. The rest of it, they paid for. And I can't imagine what it must cost. Now, one of their partners is Delta Airlines, which is what flew us over there and back. And I don't know how that relationship works, but it's just a magnificently efficient run organization that makes sure that the veterans are taken care of totally. It's amazing. I never would have. And have you ever heard of the honor flights?
Yes.
Okay. Well, I've been on an honor flight. I was a veteran on an honor flight, and then I sponsored, I think went twice and helped you. You got to have somebody with every one of them. And so I got to do that. Well, it's more than, it's more than the honor flights. I mean, it's just amazing. Okay. Now, so there are 6 CCN. So we ended up going to Saigon / Ho Chi Minh. Oh yeah, Ho Chi Minh City. That's what it is. Okay. Ho Chi Minh City, Da Nang, and Hue, and points in between. The CCN guys actually got to go to where their base camp was, where on May in 1968, where
August.
Special Forces took the largest killed in action.
Yeah.
16 of their friends and comrades were killed. We actually went to that site.
Wow.
And they held a little ceremony, which was just awesome, right below
Marble
Monkey
Mountain.
Yeah. So it was very wonderful for them, and it was touching to be a part of that. We went to Chu Chi, where all those tunnels are. Did you see the Jim Shorten?
Yeah, that I can fit. No, don't go down the hole. And then he's going like, oh shit, now I'm stuck. Yeah, that was funny.
And Jack Carr was with us.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. I mean, he was with us the whole time, did everything we did. He's really a nice guy. Really nice guys. When they asked for I think we were outside Way. We were very close to the Laotian border. Am I getting close?
No. Sorry, just
okay.
I'm turning my phone off. My
no. I just want to make sure I don't. We're on a bus. We had big buses. I mean, which is interesting. I didn't point out to you, but they have standard transmissions in the buses, not automatics. Yeah, and I'm talking about these big, whole bunch of big seats. But anyway, so we're at Way, and we go out to the Special Forces camp that got run over by tanks.
Oh,
you know who I'm talking about?
Yeah.
And I can't think of it for the life of me.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So we go there, and then we go up to another other little town and go around the town and go back in the I guess the back part of the town, and the bus stops, and there's a Vietnamese soldier there. In fact, there was a couple of them, and I don't know whether they knew they were going to go there or they got stopped unexpectedly. Long story short, we stopped there, and you could see a sign that said Laotian border. And Donnie Edwards said, it was actually the river, which was just, 50 yards away from us. He said, I'm going to get you guys to go there. I'm going to get you guys to go there. So the interpreter, our tour guide gets out, Donnie gets out. They spend an hour negotiating, I guess. Well, they come back in. They said, well, they want your passports. So everybody gives up their passports and they take them to the guy. And I don't know what actually they did with them, but they told us when they finally got uh, got back on the bus and said, we're not going to get to go there. They're not going to let us go
Oh,
so we didn't get to go there. But I don't know whether it was actually consummated, but they said they wanted $250 a passport to return them. So we got our passports back. I don't know whether they got paid or not. So I don't know how that worked out. But anyway, we didn't get to go. And it's one of those things where you thought, oh, shit, they're going to arrest all of us. We're going to be stuck in a Vietnamese jail. So, but they always tried to do what you wanted to do. But the days were long. We only got on a bus at 7:30, or we got on a boat, went up the rivers, and at 7:30 in the morning, we might get back to the hotel at 5, 6-ish, and then we were taken out to eat. And you're not talking about a McDonald's meal. We're talking about a 5 to 7 course meal. So it was 10:30 before we got back to the hotel.
wow.
So it was a long day for a bunch of old farts. But it was well planned, well funded. I will never forget that trip. But they asked for feedback, and my feedback was, I would recommend if you do SOG again, that you only take like 8. If the number's 8, you take 8 guys from CCN, or you take 8 guys from CCC, or you take 8 guys from CCS, and go to those areas.
Right.
I didn't have the same warm and fuzzy feelings that the CCN guys did, because that's where we went.
Right.
I didn't get that opportunity, and I'm not upset about it, but I just said, here's my take on it. Okay.
Yeah.
But I'm so grateful. I'm so unbelievably surprised that I got to be a part of that the first time that they take Vietnam veterans back to Vietnam. So, and I don't know, we're hoping for them to have a table set up at SOAR. We hope
nice.
they could do that so they could tell others about it, and that we could, funnel people to, and maybe they do another one. I don't know how those come about, but I know that that's where their next step. Now, they haven't ever said anything about Korea. So I don't know whether there's no idea about doing that, or they're jumping straight to Vietnam. But I think the SOG folks will be pretty well entrenched. Now, there were a couple of guys that turned the trip down. I don't know why. I don't know what, I'm sure there's some that I don't want. I've heard some of them said, I don't want anything to do with that place anymore. So
Yeah.
It was an honor to me.
So for the overall feeling for you was that you're pleased that you went, and it was not closure, but it gave you some relief to see that the country had carried on. And what I find kind of very intriguing is that the people there are very friendly towards Americans.
There's
no ill will feelings. There's nothing,
Well, we went into this one little cafe that had the tunnel inside it. They were happy to help us and go through it and look at it. And you're right. The people, I never ran into anybody that looked at it, that I felt like, oh, they're looking to kill us at all. Where the hotel in Ho Chi Minh City was, I mean, they had a block long of Rolex stores, Gucci, Denor, all these fancy shops, just like you'd find in New York or LA, or right there in Ho Chi Minh City, Saigon. So they are really, even though they say they're communists, they're very capitalistic in operation.
I didn't realize until a guy who was part of SOG, he was in NAD, he's a Navy SEAL, and he educated to me that there is, Russian, Russian forms of communism, and then there's Chinese forms of communism. And he said both are a little bit different. And I didn't know that. Like one,
I didn't either.
And so he he was working with Cubans, and they were trying to find they had gone
That's
to
why
the
you asked me about the Cubans and the Chinese and the Russians. Oh, okay.
and
Hmm.
then so he went to the Congo, working for the agency,
Yeah.
and during that time that they knew that Shea was there, and so when I talked to my contact, he said Shea fell out of favor with Castro, because Shea liked the Chinese version of communism more,
Ah,
and Castro was more of the Russian. So there was a division between and Shea had fallen out of favor with Castro at that point in time, even though that he
I
was
did not know that.
yeah.
Oh, that's interesting. That is really interesting.
So
So,
to as we're coming up to the hour, and you're very welcome to come back on again, but I'd like, because you're still very involved with the veterans and with the SOA, I'd like to give you the platform to tell the public about what you do with your
okay.
motorcycle, not MC with.
That's right. Not MC.
So can we talk
Uh,
a bit about that?
Yes, I certainly can. I'm a member of what's called well, I'm actually the chaplain for the Combat Veterans Motorcycle Association. It is a worldwide organization. Combat Veterans Motorcycle Association, Chapter 1812 in Morristown, Tennessee, which is over northeast of Knoxville. And we are a group of veterans, combat veterans. You have to be a combat veteran to be a full member. Now we have supporters, and we have there's another category. I can't remember what that other category is, like spouses, but they don't call them spouses. But anyway, um, uh, our chapter, and all chapters are supposed to, we focus on assisting veterans in our area that need help. As I mentioned earlier, we do every quarter partner with Second Harvest, called Second Harvest. It's a food distribution company to the needy, and we have various locations where we give away food baskets to our veterans. Uh, they we when we do one of those on a quarter, we feed anywhere from, or no, excuse me, we provide food to anywhere from 200 to 300 families in
Wow.
one day. It's amazing. Um, I I love doing that. It's just a unbelievable, makes your heart warm to do that. We also help veterans that are in need in regards to if they are disabled, maybe they can't do some of the things around the house. We'll help build uh, uh, wheelchair platforms, or one of our veterans said, "I'd give anything to have a flagpole," and we're able to get um, um, we are able to get partnered with like Lowe's. A lot of times Lowe's will donate lumber and stuff. So it's very heartfelt work that this motorcycle association does, and we do it continually. It's not just once in a while. We do it as every week. Something's going on in our chapter in regards to helping veterans. And can I mention something about ESGR?
Of course.
Do I have time?
Absolutely, sir.
Okay. There is also another organization that I probably do something for every day, and it's called the Employer Support of the Guard and Reserve. ESGR was a volunteer agency under the Secretary of Defense, now the Secretary of War, that was established in 1972 due to the ending of the draft. Its mission is to educate service members and their employers on the law of USERRA, the Uniform Service Employment Reemployment Rights Act. There is a ESGR program in every state and territory of the United States. Most of those have a paid admin person that takes care of the paperwork required to document what we do. But the rest of the folks, like in Tennessee, we have 100+ volunteers across the state uh, that brief military units on the law USERRA. I happen to have responsibility for briefing 36 units annually in and around the Knoxville area, and that's including the Army Reserves, Navy Reserves, Marine Reserves, and the National Guard, Army National Guard. Oh, and the Air National Guard. We also have a program called the Ombudsman Program, and I am the director for the Tennessee Ombudsman under ESGR. And our job is to assist veterans that are having a problem with their employer due to their military service. And we intervene as a neutral party and assist them in educating their employers on the issue that's affecting them in some way. And it's not always a case where the employer's always wrong. Sometimes the service members doesn't know what they're talking about either. So, but that's something I do every day for ESGR. I am also the secretary for the Special Operations Association, and I'm also the director of the Special Operations Association Writers. Our function is really we ride once a year. We raise money for what's called Bright Light Family Warrior Fund. And this year we raised almost $2,800 through our little raffle, Friday night raffle and silent auction. And that's one of the bigger pots that we've had in the past several years. But we want to make sure that families that are and members, if they don't have the means to come to SOAR, to come to the reunion, we can assist them through that fund.
You definitely have a full plate of things to do,
Yeah. Yes, I do. And I enjoy it. That's what keeps me motivated. I like to be able to stay in touch with our veterans, those that I served with and those that I didn't serve with.
So for if the public want to reach out to you, or like if I want to add links to these different places that you help, I can do that in I can add it on to the end of the video or something,
Okay, well, the ESGR thing's easy. It's esgr.mil.
Okay, that's easy.
And that's really easy. And then the CVMA 8 Chapter 1812 has a Facebook page, CVA 1812 Tennessee. So those are two easy ones to remember. And that gets you to the website and or Facebook page that tells you a little bit. The ESGR has a lot, .mil has a lot of information on that in regards to what ESGR is, what USERA is, how people can work together, the awards that can be provided or given to and nominated for by service members for their employers and that kind of thing. Very interesting.
And to anybody else in the public, I mean, you can always contact me, and I can help you get in touch with Marcus. So together we can help everybody out that needs help.
Well, I hope so. That's what we're here for.
So for today, I thank you, sir, for spending the time and sharing some moments which are not too easy to talk about. But I'm hoping that these podcasts will inspire some veterans to go back to Vietnam and maybe take their families and say, look, it's been a hard trip for me, but I want to show you where I served. Or
I think that would be awesome. And I want to thank you for what you do for us. It is an honor to be on your program. I feel very blessed that you've asked me to participate.
Well, you're more than welcome. And it's a great honor for me to be able to call. You're going to get me all choked up now. It's a real honor for me to call many of you friends, and it's the least I can do. So,
are you planning on being at SOAR?
That is the plan. Yes.
Okay, good. Well, I look forward to actually meeting you
in person. Yeah,
in person. That's exactly right.
So for the public, I'm going to end this, and I want to just chat to you for a minute, just off air. So thank you very much, sir.
Thank you.
must be some kind of way out of here.